Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm sitting here with one half of the High Flyers, one half of the Killer Bees. He should be a WWE Hall of Famer, in my opinion, Jumpin'Jim Brunzell. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me, Richard. I was going to tell you this story about Wahoo McDaniel's, great Indian wrestler of the 70s, 80s, and probably late 60s. And I remember we were in Sisseton, South Dakota, and it was an Indian reservation. We went there, and they made Wahoo an honorary chief, and they gave him a beautiful headdress. And we wrestled there. It was like a spot show. And then we drove up 29 to go to Winnipeg the next night. So Wahoo was very emotional, and he used to drink quite a bit. He had his own little pint, and he was drinking. And I'm driving. I had a 74 Catalina, four-door, and I had Rene Goulet in the back seat, and I was driving, and Wahoo was sitting in the passenger side. And it's snowing. It was snowing pretty good. And he said, come on, Jimmy. He says, pull over. And I said, what for? He said, I want to drive. And I says, Wahoo. He says, just let me drive. I drive in snow all the time. So he gets behind the wheel, and he drank what was ever in this pint. And, Wahoo he used to take a lot of pills too. So we're driving down the road. He's going 80 miles an hour on 29 in a snowstorm. And all of a sudden, he started slurring his words, and the car went into 360 mode. And we're going down the North Highway 29, doing 360s. Rene Goulet, scared to death, he jumped on the floor. And then it felt like at least a minute we were doing this. And all of a sudden, the car laid, perpendicular to the road. And I slammed my foot on the brake and put the car in drive. And I jumped out of the car, and I opened the driver's side, and I said, Chief, I said, doggone it, you're going to kill us. And he was asleep. He was completely passed out. So Rene Goulet and I got him in the back seat. We drove the rest of the way to Winnipeg in this snowstorm. So we come through customs, and the customs guys were always, I always recognize this. And they said, who's that in the back seat? And I said, it's Chief Wahoo McDaniel. And this officer says, is he drunk? And I said, yeah. And he says, go ahead. So he let us go. And then the next day, Wahoo never remembered driving the car. So I thought, Jesus, and that was just one of the times that, happened that when we were on the road, oh my God, he was a character. He was a heck of a performer in the ring. And I'll never forget the time he had a long program with Billy Superstar Graham, and they used to have strap matches. And Billy Graham would come out of the ring, and he had these huge welts, and actually where he was even bleeding on his back. Oh, and he tracked down Wally Carbo, and he says, Carbo, he says, God dang it, he says, tell that crazy Indian, he says, that this is a work. He says, he's killing me. But they made a lot of money for 6 months or a year. Yeah.
Did you have any strap matches over your career ever?
Oh, no. I stayed away from them. I was a baby face, sort of a athletic type guy. Didn't, no gimmicks at all. Other than, when we put the masks on as Killer Bees in the WWE. But